floor.
There we go. Awesome. Hi guys, I'm Nate. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you so much, Serena. Wow, what an intro. No pressure. Yeah, man. Let's see. I don't even know where to begin. I like the format of this meeting already though. I just got into secular meetings this time around in sobriety and absolutely love them. So I will definitely be coming back. I'm excited. Yeah, that's crazy, Serena. Full circle, like you said. My sobriety date is 7/17 of 2025, which means I have 371 days of sobriety, which is absolutely insane in itself because something I never thought I would obtain. And I guess I'll start at the beginning. I have some bullet points. I don't know if I'll hit them all. I don't want to ramble on too long, but let's see. I was born in a pretty average middle class family here in Portland, Oregon. And it was very, very religious. There was no swearing, no drugs, alcohol. The mention of that was even just talking about it was taboo. Um, I didn't go to church every Sunday and then twice a week on during the week for youth group. I was grounded. I wasn't allowed to go see my friends if I didn't do it at church. Um, And I was told from as early as I can remember that I was adopted, which never really bothered me, right? At least I didn't think it did until like diving into this program and dissecting every bit of my life and my resentments and those hidden even from myself. But I remember going to school the next day, like first grade or second grade, and like telling everyone I was so excited, like, oh, I just found out I'm adopted. And all my friends were like, oh my God, that's horrible. I was like, what? And I was like, whatever. And I didn't think too much of it. But I was a very anxious kid from the get-go. Always fearful, couldn't sleep, would just like toss and turn with just crazy thoughts running through my head constantly from like the earliest age I can remember of just like absolutely insane shit. Like, my dad was a long haul truck driver and he'd be gone for like weeks at a time. And I would make up this whole fucking story in my head about him like crashing and fucking dying. And I would like literally be in tears at like, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 years old. And like all this made up shit that like had no business going on in my head. But every time I tried to talk about it or bring it up to my parents that I was like depressed or anxious, like, oh, just Jesus will fix it. Jesus will fix it. And I was pretty almost scolded to even talk about my feelings. So I just shoved that shit down and hoped that Jesus would fix it. And when that ultimately didn't happen, I was convinced of one or two things that God wasn't real or he was and just fucking hated me for some reason. And I lived with that for a long time. I had a lot of friends though. I was a very social butterfly in a bunch of different groups. I played sports through elementary, middle school, and a little bit in high school. I went to a lot of summer camps, had a lot of good friends. And then as I was getting into adolescence and pre-puberty, I guess, started experimenting with a close friend of mine. And I didn't think too much of it in the terms of like sexuality and what mine was and what it all meant. We like found porn together and it was just this thing that we would do every once in a while. And then it kind of switched gears quickly and got violent. And the first time I tried to say no, he actually like, yeah, forced himself on me and terrified me to ever say no again. But Um, that coincided perfectly with my introduction to alcohol. We started drinking right then when all that shit was going down at the age of 13. And I like to say I started drinking at 13. It wasn't just my first drink. Like I was off and running at 13. I remember 9 Milwaukee's Best the first time I drank. And I would always have this secret little game of how much can I drink before I either puke or pass out. And I never won that game as hard as I tried, because I would always puke and then pass out. But yeah, I stopped caring about anything about my sexuality or abuse or whatever was happening because I had alcohol and I was stealing wine from the Rite Aid every chance I got. And that same year at 13, I went camping and lost my virginity to a girl who was like way older than me. I lied about being older, she lied about being younger. It was a whole thing. Um, and then yeah, my home life, I had all this shit going on in my little noggin and nowhere to turn to or talk to. My mom and I just fought constantly. She was going through menopause at the same time I was going through puberty, and it was a fucking shit show. So I just drank as often and frequently as I could. It wasn't easy getting alcohol, but I think I had a close to 100% success rate at shoulder tapping folks, which is crazy. I don't think that's a thing anymore, which is funny. Yeah, and then high school, I got into a serious relationship. Right, I think my freshman year, she was on the snowboarding team at the other high school in like the town over, and we dated for like 4 years. And her dad was an alcoholic and would always pass me his flask when we were out at things, and it was great. I had no problem with the term alcoholic, even from a young age. I was like, why is that such a like demonized word? Like, I want to be an alcoholic. Like, they have so much fun. Like, people who drink a lot are just alcoholics and whatever. I was in a band when I was in high school, a metal band. I was a drummer. The whole church group thing that I grew up with my parents, they were the leaders of the worship team. So I started playing drums when I was like 8. Um, at the church, and yeah, played metal in bands through high school, played a lot of shows. Actually went on tour with this band right after high school when I was 18. Didn't really drink that much there, but it was the time of my life. It was horrible. We broke down constantly. We lived in the van. I packed a carton of cigarettes and like 100 peanut butter and jellies, and that's basically what we lived off of for a month and a half. And then right after that, I went to a university and started college at Western Oregon. I've wanted to be a teacher ever since I was in 5th grade, and I had an amazing teacher that completely changed my life. And I was like, I want to do that. And so I studied to be a teacher, but I was so busy drinking and selling weed, and um, I eventually dropped out. I went for about 5.5 years. Um, Met the girl of my dreams, who I thought I was going to marry, and actually was engaged to marry. Um, until my drinking just was too much for her. Her dad was the first person who ever told me that I needed to get help, which was after I crashed the family car on my way to work at like 5 in the morning. I didn't think alcohol had anything to do with it because I was ignorant and naive to how science works because I drank the day before. I slept only for 2 hours, but it was a new day. I was sober and yeah, crashed the car, didn't get a DUI. Um, but we were doing so much Adderall and Coke and just drinking all the time. And that was up in Alaska where we worked with her, stayed with her family and worked every summer. And so I horrible breakup. I remember we had the little airplane shooters on the train, and I would collect those because I was in charge of doing the counts at the end of the night. So I would just bring home a bunch. And my top drawer of the dresser, like a pretty big drawer, was just stuffed to the brim with little airplane shooters when I left for the last time. And I just left them there. I didn't really care what anyone thought. And then yeah, that was a bad breakup, man. I blacked out in September and crashed my car in a ditch and got my first DUI. And I remember I was working at a wine bar, and the owners came from Louisiana and New Orleans specifically, and they kind of laughed at me and they're like, "Oh, you got your first DUI? Like that's it?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And didn't take it seriously, kept drinking, and then after that, I just drank and worked happily ever. Oh, not after, until COVID hit. Everything shut down, had another bad breakup, moved back home with my folks, And my drinking escalated, to say the least. It went from, I don't know, 10, 15, maybe 20 shots a night to about a half gallon a night. And I just had a trash bag, like an industrial trash bag in my closet full of empty half gallons that my dad found and showed a little bit of concern about my drinking. And I just told him, oh, me and my buddies, I haven't thrown them out. It's just me and my friends. My friends didn't drink vodka. It was all me. And I started to question my drinking, my relationship with alcohol, and it just increased and increased. I got in another relationship with my buddy's cousin who I met at his wedding, and I got like one of my dream jobs as an education assistant at an elementary school working with kids with autism, and it was incredible. The least paying job I've ever had, but it was the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And unfortunately, it coincided with the most alcohol I was consuming at my life at that point. I was waking up with the shakes at like 4 in the morning. And yeah, I hate to say it, I would drink about a pint on my way to work every day and then throughout the day, just so I wouldn't be shaking and sweating and showing signs of um, withdrawals. Eventually, that caught up to me. I had a full-on mental breakdown. Like I said, I've had anxiety and depression my whole life. But this was different. This time I had a plan that I was ready to carry out. I was going to kill myself, and I had it all planned out. And then I don't know if I sobered up or just like had a change of heart, whatever. But I told my girlfriend at the time, like, yo, you need to take me to the hospital right now. And she's like, what the fuck is going on? And I was like, just take me to the hospital. Just tell them 5150, and that's all you need to know. She did. She drove me all the way from Yamhill to Portland, which is like a 2 hour drive. Went to the hospital and told them to 5150 me. And they were more concerned about my alcohol detox because I was honest about how much I was drinking. And I had my water bottle of vodka with me. And she's like, when's the last time you took a drink? And I chugged a bunch and was like, what do you mean? She's like, okay, and I'll take that. And that was the worst detox still to this date that I ever went through. That was just all the years and then finally quitting. And I was like seeing shit, hearing shit. Yeah, 10 days in the hospital. And I was finally, okay, this is my rock bottom. This is all I needed. I was just waiting for a rock bottom. Everything will be fine now. And I think I made it like 21 days after that on my own. But the transition began of me actually not wanting to drink, um, and finding myself unable to not drink or to not drink, whatever, double negatives. Um, and I tried everything to control and enjoy my drinking. Great obsession. And I came home with a case of White Claws and was like, I'm not going to hide my vodka from you anymore. I'm going to drink like a normal person. And I thought I coined that phrase. I thought I was the first person in history to ever come up with such a grand idea. And that didn't last long. I was back to hiding fits around the house, under the house, behind the bushes, you name it. And everything in my life blew up. I crashed my car a second time and got another DUI, had a terrible breakup where the cops were called, and ended up with me getting a third DUI 3 weeks after my second DUI. And yeah, my life was over. At this point, I had kind of dabbled in AA. I went to a couple meetings, and it wasn't anything I expected. It was nothing that I expected. They had a first step meeting for me, and the way that they told their stories about how and why and what their drinking did to them, for them, against them, what have you. My ears perked up and I was like, oh shit, like these are my people. Like they get it. Finally someone is saying things that they understand. It's not like a parent or a counselor who's never had any struggles with addiction being like, well, just do better and all that. Like that never jived with me. But these motherfuckers got it. Um, and I found myself wanting to want it for so fucking long and so hard. Luckily, I had a lot of legal issues with the back-to-back DUIs that helped keep me sober for a while. Went to rehab, the first rehab, and then after I got out, I did 6 months, and I worked a pretty decent program. I had a sponsor, I was doing all the things, going to a lot of meetings, but I just wanted to want it. I didn't actually, I wasn't desperate enough, or I don't know. And I went out for a couple months, ended up going back to rehab, a different one, and then had a different approach, I guess, to this whole recovery business, where I was starting to figure out, okay, this shit's not going to go away on its own. Uh, Again, I, I had a sponsor, started working the steps, and went about 8 months that time. Um, and then I drank again. I didn't want to. I remember going to the liquor store. Um, with the last $20 I had because I went on this fucking gambling spree, and I told myself if I lose it all, I'll save 20 bucks. And I bought a handle of vodka and was right back to it, man. Morning drinking, the works. And the withdrawals came so much sooner. I thought, oh, got 8 months. My tolerance is going to be so low. Nope, right back to a fifth a day. Um, until this last attempt, I guess, this last round, um, where my legal shit's not really um, a big influence on my life right now. My um, PO emails me once every 3 months. Like, I don't take UAs. Nothing's like all the court shit's done. Like, I don't have a lot of pressure legally to be sober. I could get away with it if I wanted to. And I was for about a month and a half. Feels like so much longer when you're out there drinking. Um, but it was actually this gentleman I started seeing. Yeah, I left out a big chunk about me coming to terms with my sexuality and coming out to my family as queer or bisexual. And that was in rehab that I made that realization. And it was huge because there was a big correlation between me not being true to myself and being in the closet and drinking in the closet and hiding this whole other side of me. And so he convinced me to get sober, and I decided I was gonna have one last hurrah, and then not go to a detox center because I was tired of those. And then I went to cold turkey it, and I woke up on the bathroom floor having a couple seizures. My mom found me and back to the hospital, and they gave me a big book. And I opened it up, and I was like, all right, let's see what you're about again. And I've read this thing so many times trying to exclude myself from this program, trying to find a loophole that I can just fucking cancel AA in my life. And unfortunately, as much as there are things that I don't identify with in this book and in this program, there's so much that has just spoken to me in such a way that I'm convinced that it works, and it can work however you want it, or however it works for you, that works. Like, if it helps keep you sober. Um, I used to have such a rigid, um, like strict like view on recovery and the AA program. And after trying and failing a few times, I came back to this passage on page 25 that says, if you are as seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe there is no middle of the road solution. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible. If we had passed into the region from which there is no return through human aid, we had but two alternatives: one to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could, and the other to accept spiritual help. And I was like, all right, let's do this thing again. And I came back to AA with an even more open mind, I think, especially to the whole spiritual concept. And I was just going to use the room and the program and the group as my higher power because I read about that and it worked for people. And it's worked. I've stayed sober, not perfectly. Physically, yes. Emotionally, comes and goes. But a good friend of mine recently got me this Grapevine book called One Big Tent that I recommend to anybody. It is excerpts from all different Grapevine articles dating back to all the way, this one's 1987, but it's the atheist and agnostic AA members sharing their experience, strength, and hope. And it's like old timers who like are adamantly atheist and agnostic who just completely tell how they've done it and how it works for them and how they navigate this program um, without giving up their belief system, which I struggled with the higher power thing so hard. And like I said, it was rigid and strict, and if I didn't do it perfectly, I would just go fucking drink. And this time I don't do that. I found that I can just talk to someone, or I found other groups that are a little less traditional, such as other secular groups. And that's really kept me sober, man. Yeah, I don't have much more. I think that's it. I'm yeah, honored and blessed to be here and be telling my story. I hope it resonates with someone out there because we have a lot more in common than I initially ever thought I would with people in these rooms. Um, so yeah, thanks, Serena. Love you so much.
They